Well, thank you. Welcome so much, everybody. I am so glad you guys are here because this is my first Michael's class. So I am just thrilled that you guys decided to join me today. I'm even more thrilled that I get to show you one of the latest trends in food crafting, which is creating a chocolate piñata. So I'm Jill Baethge, and I'm the owner of Kaboom Chocolaka, and I'm coming to you today from the American Crafts office in Irving, Texas. So this is not my normal kitchen. Usually I'm dancing in my kitchen creating these, but I promise to save you all the song and dance routine. But let me know in the chat where you guys are zooming from today, and let me know if any kids are joining. I saw a few kids come up. I think these are great projects for kids, so I'm super excited that some kids have joined us today. Also, let me know if you've ever gotten to smash a chocolate piñata before, or even the greater joy of creating one. So I've been doing this for about 4 years now, and I'm nearly 100% self-taught. So I'm really hoping that I could share some of the knowledge that I've gained throughout the years with you all today. Now, since this is a beginner's course, we're going to cover some basics in the beginning, and then we'll move on to the actual process of creating a piñata. So basically, what is a chocolate piñata? The way I like to describe it is it's like a hard chocolate shell, and then it's filled with candy that you get to smash open to reveal the goodies inside. And I just think they're great for like any celebration: birthdays, anniversaries, gender reveals, thank you gifts, work events, holidays, family events. I think all of it. If you have a reason to celebrate, you have a reason to get one of these and smash them. And then how many times do you get to actually break something and get a treat for it? Like, that is like just the awesome thing about this. I know when I was little, if I broke something, I probably got a stern scolding for it, but that's what makes this fun for kids and adults. You get to hit something and get a treat for it. So that's pretty awesome, if you ask me. So specifically, the one that we're gonna create today is this geometric heart piñata using the Kaboom Chocolaka mold that is now available at Michael's. And before we switch over, taking a closer look at the mold, I just wanted to show some of the piñatas that we've created behind me. So I've created some of these myself, and the others were created by Jamie, who works here at American Crafts. And we got to show off some of our creativity. So we're going to show you the basketball, which was made with the Kaboom Chocolaka ball mold. There's a football, there's a cupcake here, and then on this side, I took half of the ball mold and made and used Sweet Tooth Fairy's cake decorating kit for the flamingo, and so created the flamingo. There's a heart, another geometric heart that has like really good marbling. That's a fun project. And then over there is the egg mold that we created, a dinosaur egg, so it has like a bunch of sprinkles on it. We also have some mini molds. So we have a mini cube and a mini cupcake, which is my favorite because I just think it's so adorable. But let's see, we'll switch over now to, I'm going to set this aside, and we'll switch over to the overhead camera so we can take a closer look at the molds. All righty. Okay. So most of the Kaboom Chocolaka molds come in 3 pieces. And the 3 pieces that I'm talking about are usually like a front and a back, like on this heart one, or a top and the bottom, like on the sphere one. And then it has a plug, a chocolate plug. And that's what is going to keep your chocolate inside. And they snap together really well, and they make a fully enclosed piñata. And to me, that's what adds to the level of surprise with these piñatas, is creating a fully enclosed one. So I know some of you may have seen where they do like half the heart, and then somebody comes along and maybe peeks underneath it and ruins the surprise. or which is fine. I mean, obviously not ruining a surprise, but but creating a half the heart. I love all piñatas, so whichever one you create is totally fine. But the reason I especially love these is because they're fully enclosed, and the heart stands up once you're finished with it. And that's what gives you the chance to like come over the top of it and smash it and really create that next level of surprise, and really just increases the joy for everybody, like the person smashing it and also the people around you. So we are going to now now that we've talked about the molds a little bit, we're going to move over to melting our chocolate. So at this point, if you're following along and you want to start melting your chocolate, you know, you can do it according to the package on the back. I'm just going to take a little bit of time to talk about Sweet Tooth Fairy Meltables, because that's what we're using today. And I really like these meltables because they come in well, number one, actually, they taste really good. And then number two, they come in a variety of colors and flavors. And so let me know in the chat, like what colors you guys are using today or plan on using, and if you're using like any flavors. I really love a lot of her flavors that she has out there. Another thing that I like about that, they're really easy to work with. So they're very forgiving. If you heat them up too much, then you can just let them cool down and then use them in your piñata mold. And if you heat them up to the point where they actually burn, like I have 2 young kids, sometimes I forget that I have something in the microwave. And so I've burnt a little bit of chocolate in my past. And to be honest with you, I think that burnt chocolate tastes like creme brulee. So if you like creme brulee, you know, you might want to sample a little bit. No chocolate goes to waste in our household. We eat it all, whether it's burnt or, you know, not. So, and then the third thing, the last thing that I like about this is that they, this comes from the business side of it. So, back on the Sweet Tooth Fairy packages, they have a best by date, and that's really important to me from a business aspect, because believe it or not all meltable bags have a date stamp like that on it. And so if I'm making one for a customer, I really want to make sure that I am not using like an old product and stuff like that. So that really helps with inventory control and quality control. So that's really why I like, those are just a variety of reasons why I like Sweet Tooth Fairy. Plus, they're at Michael's, so when you pick up the mold, you pick up the chocolate. Sweet Tooth Fairy now has a line of candy, so you can get candy there. Obviously, Michael's has a candy aisle too, and it just becomes a one-stop shop, and it's just a time saver if you ask me. So we have already started melting some of our meltables. And when I say meltables, if I tend to say chocolate, I mean meltables. We're not, like I said, we're not doing any tempering today. And we started melting this before class. So I'm going to actually, it has cooled down just a little bit. So I'm going to actually put it in the microwave at 50% power for a couple of minutes. And maybe during that time, while that is being microwaved, maybe if anybody, I know it's still early on, but just in case anybody might have a question, we can take a couple of questions now while this is heating up. All right, so I'm just putting it in the microwave at 50%. If you have a higher powered microwave, you might not want to do it for the full minute. If you have are heating up less chocolate, you also might not want to do it the full minute. So you might have to adjust as things go along. The amount of chocolate that I'm using today is normally for the geometric mold, I use around 18 ounces. And oops. Let's get that going. So let me repeat that in case you didn't hear it over the microwave. So for the geometric mold heart, I tend to use around 18 ounces a pack of meltables, which is about a package and a half of the Sweet Tooth Fairy Meltables, because each package is 12 ounces. That's a rough estimate. I don't measure it out, I just kind of eyeball it. But if this is not your first time creating a piñata and you want to use less chocolate, you're more than welcome to do that. For example, I also fill my piñatas pretty full with candy. So I think at least 18 ounces would hold the weight of the candy. So if you're not going to fill yours as full, you can use less chocolate. Or if this is the very first one you're making and you want to use a little bit more chocolate, like around 20 to 24 ounces, and just to be sure that the piñata has nice several layers of chocolate in it, and that it supports the weight of the candy or whatever you're putting in it, then you're welcome to do that. So it's really up to you. For me, on average, like I said, about 18 ounces, that's what I found it would create just a nice couple of layers of chocolate in the piñata and also support the weight of the candy. All right, so I'm just gonna give this a couple of stirs, just a couple of notes on stirring. You don't wanna stir too vigorously because that may create some extra air bubbles. So I kind of do like a stirring and a folding and a smoothing kind of combination there, just to get everything well reincorporated. Like if any oils have started separating or any of the sugar had started separating. Obviously with meltables, you really don't see that happening. So it's more so on a micro level, but this really helps with and preventing some of the fat and sugar blooms that you might see in your piñata. And those blooms are basically those white spots that kind of come to the surface. So we'll give that a little bit of stirring there. All right, so now what we're going to do is put it in our mold. And I forgot for a second where I had placed the mold. So like I said, these molds snap together and then there's a filler hole. This filler hole can be used for chocolate. I tend to be on the messy side, so since the heart does not stand upside down on its own, what I tend to do is I just remove 1/2 of the mold, and then I'm going to pour my chocolate more so at the top here, because there's a groove cut out for the plug, and so I just don't want any of that extra chocolate spilling out. So now I'm going to just pour in some of that chocolate, and I'm going to save some for later. All right, so the next thing is snapping the molds together. So these snap together really well, and you just kind of press all around, make sure that they snap together. If some of you who are used to creating piñatas or used to using plastic molds, sometimes you would have to use binder clips to clip your molds together. Well, with the Kaboom Chocolaka molds, you no longer have to do that. And then the last step or last piece is this chocolate plug. So we're just going to make sure that goes in there, just like snaps in there, just like that. And now we're going to rotate the mold so that every bit of the surface area is inside is covered with chocolate, including this bottom piece. So we're going to make sure that chocolate goes down there. And we're just going to keep rotating for a little bit. That really kind of mixes up the chocolate well too. And once you have everything covered, oh, if you by chance have any air bubbles, a lot of times if you just kind of direct chocolate to that area, the pressure from the weight of the chocolate will release the air bubble. But if you have a stubborn one, all you really have to do is just kind of bang it against your surface and bang it until that air bubble just rises to the top. And then we're going to keep rotating. And then I'm going to give this to Jamie, and she's going to put it in the fridge for about 1 to 2 minutes. All right. So at this point, is there any questions? As while that is in the fridge, we can take any questions if there are any, or I can talk about a little bit more about things that happen in the fridge. We're good?
Yeah, mostly good. We did have a question about the molds being dishwasher safe.
No, they're not dishwasher safe. To clean your mold, you can just clean it with like soap and hot water, and that usually cleans it pretty good. Sometimes because you know the chocolate has some oil in it, and if you have like an oily residue, maybe it didn't get as cleaned as well the first time, you can just again use warm soapy water, or some people you actually put some alcohol like on a paper towel and just clean off some of that oil. So it's up to you if you want to do that tip. You know, obviously not everybody has alcohol, like alcohol that you drink. So not everybody has that in their home. So, but yeah, that's probably the best way to clean it. It's just with warm soapy water. I usually don't tend to let them soak in the water. I just, you know, get them clean, get them out, get them dry. All right, Jenny is back with the mold. So again, we're going to rotate it. Just, you can kind of see on camera, like here, there is, and up here, you can see that there's not a lot of chocolate right there. And so we're going to make sure that those areas, like I just kind of go along the seam. And then another thing that I like to do, actually, let me grab my dry erase marker. So when she put this mold in the fridge, she laid it on this side. So we're going to label this side A. This is just a dry erase marker. And then the next time she puts it in the fridge, she's going to lay it on side B. And that just kind of keeps, and it's just dry erase, so you know it's going to come off when you wash it. And that just kind of keeps keeps the layers of chocolate, trying to get them as even as possible. Now, usually at this point, your chocolate is still runny. You know, not all the time. If you heat it up, I tend to heat mine a little bit warmer. And so it's usually runny at this point. So on the second and third rotation in the fridge, either by the second or third, I like to take this chocolate plug off. And the reason why I like to do that is for a couple of reasons. But before I'll get to those reasons in just a second. But when you take this off, that if you had a lot of heat trapped inside, you might get a little blooping of chocolate. So just make sure that you don't have it too close to your face or to your clothes. And it usually doesn't splatter or anything like that, but that's just a word of caution. And then when I take it off, I actually want to try to keep the chocolate on that plug, because then later I'm going to use that chocolate plug to close up the piñata. And that step is optional. We'll discuss that when we get there. But for now, I'm going to just kind of take it off and rotate it out, just keeping a little chocolate on it. And then we're going to also put that in the fridge. But the reason why I like taking that out on maybe the second or third rotation is because there's heat trapped inside there. And now we're letting the heat escape. So that's going to help harden the chocolate that's inside of there. The other reason that I like taking it out is because now I can actually look inside of the piñata. And let's see, you can kind of see there's not a lot of chocolate there. So now I can kind of direct that chocolate over that spot. You can see it's thin there. So I'm going to come around and try to get that spot there. This is where if you take the plug out too early, like in this case that I have, just to be able to show you, it kind of helps, get some of those spots that are lower here. So one word of caution with the heart mold is these spots right here on the top and the bottom. When you have it laying in your fridge, that's where the chocolate runs off of. And so those spots, you kind of have to redirect the chocolate to kind of over and over again. And you can sometimes, if you hold your piñata up to the light and look in, you can see the points where the chocolate might be thin. So that's another reason why I like taking the plug off. And then that way, again, you can direct chocolate to those thin areas. Obviously, you don't have to get every single tiny thin area. You can, try to get the major ones. Like I said, every time I rotate it, my chocolate's pretty runny, so it's still not really, forming those layers on the mold. So we would rotate this one several times. The first time you put it in the fridge, like I said, you can do it 1 to 2 minutes, but then after that, you might want to just rotate it every minute. And then once your chocolate is to the point where it's nearly hardened, if you see weak spots or thin spots in your piñata, you can just add more chocolate and just direct them to that area. I have a spatula that fits very nicely here. Actually, it's over here. That fits in here. And so I can just, put more chocolate in there and try to direct it to those weak spots that might be in there. But for the most part, if you pour your chocolate into the mold, rotate it a few times in the fridge, and demold it, you're good to go. These are just a lot of extra tips that I'm giving you from things that I learned along the way, from the 1 in 100 piñata that might have broken on me. I actually don't get a lot that break. So just know that this might be a lot of information. I don't mean to overwhelm you, that you're basically, if you melt some chocolate, put it in the piñata mold and rotate it a few times, you're probably going to be really good to go. All right, so I'm going to give this back to Jamie. Oh yeah, and the plug. Oops, that connected to our V. And then, so while rotating it, so some people have had luck maybe only rotating it 3 times. I feel like on average, I probably rotate mine maybe 5 or 6 times. So it really just depends on how hot the chocolate was when it initially went in the mold, how much you're using, but you're basically trying to clean up the layers, build up the layers inside the mold. All right, and then once you get to the point where your chocolate has hardened, we would leave it in the fridge for roughly around 30 minutes and making sure all those layers have hardened in the fridge. Obviously, for sake of time, we can't wait for the full 30 minutes to pass. So we are going to move on to demolding the chocolate, but I can also pause here if there are any questions about filling the mold prior to this point.
Yeah, we did have a few come through. A couple people have put forward that the chocolate wasn't as runny or not moving as quickly as it would need for the coating process. Would that typically be more about needing to microwave more, needing more chocolate? What could be a good solution for that?
Yeah, it could be a variety of reasons. Sometimes if by chance depending on the brand of chocolate, some just tend to run a little bit thicker. Maybe your microwave isn't as high power. I think on average, microwaves are around like 1,000 wattage or something like that. So if you don't have a high power microwave, you might, instead of like at cooking it at 50%, maybe you go up to like 60 or 70, just depending on what your wattage is. And yeah, it might just be trying to melt it a little bit more, or it's, meltables the Sweet Tooth Fairy Meltables are really easy to work with, but they can at times be a little, meltables in general can be a little finicky, because if you have them in your microwave too long in the beginning, they might have gotten too hot, and your chocolate, like if it looks like, I know one chocolatier described it, if it looks like elephant skin, like it's wrinkly, that means you probably got it too hot and you need to let it cool down. But if it hasn't got to that point, it might be where it's just not hot enough. I really you can buy like thermometers that, you know, either dip in the chocolate or point to the chocolate. I really don't use those. It's, you know, it's just becoming familiar with the brand that you're using, your microwave, and just kind of going from there. Or if you keep, you know, also keep your fridge colder than normal, it might just be where you don't wait the full 1 minute before rotating. So it could be a combination of things. I know that's not a very clear answer, but it really depends on so many things. All right. So we are going to go now to demolding, removing the piñata from the mold. And to begin with, I actually don't fully take the piñata out at this point. And the reason for it is most of my piñatas go to customers, and I like to keep it in the mold as long as possible so I don't get a lot of fingerprints on it. So, but if you are, you know, just making something for your family, you're not really concerned about fingerprints at this point, you could completely take it out of the mold. But what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you how to just kind of loosen up the mold, and then we'll still keep the piñata inside the mold for just a little bit longer. So the way I like to loosen it, I don't like trying to tear the entire mold off at first. What I'm looking for, excuse me, what I'm looking for is that there's like a layer of air between the piñata and the mold. And I know you can't see air, but so you're looking to see if the mold is a little foggy, and that means that there's a layer of air there. So I'm just gonna, oh, that actually loosened up a lot quicker than I thought it was. But basically I would just move around here, just kind of getting it loosened. If you noticed any spots that are still sticking to the mold, you can either, if it's a lot of surface area that's still sticking to the mold, it probably means that it needs to go back into the fridge. But if there's little spots where it's not foggy, and that means the chocolate is still pressed up against that mold, sometimes you can just gently press those out. But usually once you work your way around this mold, it will loosen up from the mold pretty quickly. And then I just flip it over and I do the same thing to the other side. Usually the other, once you do one side, the other side comes pretty much free. So now the mold is loosened from the chocolate. And so at this point, sometimes I just hold it at the bottom here to keep it together, and I will fill it with candy or whatever you choose. Since we are smashing this open, I would not recommend putting anything of glass in here or any toys that could easily break. Obviously the US, since they can't sell Kinder eggs here, we can't really put toys in here, but if you can do whatever you want for your own family. But in this case, you can just get a bowl, and I have one here. I actually have a bread pan here I'm going to pull out. All right. And I'm just going to set this in here so then it stands up without any assistance, and I'm going to fill it. So we've got some nice candy here. And let's see, I'm going to try to pour some of this in here. If I make too much of a mess, then we'll go to scooping it in there. All right. Sorry if that's a little noisy. I'm almost done. All right. We really made a big mess there. No worries. We'll clean it up later. I make a big mess in my kitchen, so I'm always cleaning. All right. So now that it is full, like I said, you can fill it as full as you want. With whatever you want. If it's a customer order, you might just be, aware of local laws and regulations. What I tell my customers, if it's legal and it fits, I'll put it in there, which is mainly candy. So I like I said, I tend to fill mine as full as possible, but that's completely optional for you. Okay, so now we're going to go, moving on, we are going to fully demold it. All right, I'm just going to set this, take this off. So it comes, since we partially loosened it up, it comes off pretty easily at this point. And what makes the geometric heart nice is that now the weight of the candy actually has it at a tilt. So instead of like having it all the way flat on its side, it's sitting up like that. And so now we can take our chocolate tab and just kind of glue it there. So at this point, you can just flip it over onto your cake board if you want. You don't have to put the chocolate tab on it. The reason I like to put the chocolate tab on it is because I tend to travel with mine as I'm making customer deliveries, and I just want to make sure no candy falls out. I also like to decorate them when it's laying on its side instead of standing up. And that's just for gravity purposes. So when it's laying on its side like this, you know, as I'm putting letters and things down on it, they stay on there. So I'm letting those letters dry to it. All right, so I still have some chocolate that's melted. And to be honest with you, at this point, I since this is going to be the bottom of the piñata, I don't really like put this on too nicely. I just kind of slather it on. Oh, and that's going to fall through there. And so I'm just getting a little bit of chocolate in there. Oh, and I forgot the last reason why I like this chocolate tab is because it says Kaboom on it. So yeah, I'm just kind of slathering it on there. It's going to be the bottom of it. Oops, it fell through. So sometimes when that happens, that's another reason why I like to make sure my piñata is really full, is so when it doesn't fall through. Oops. Let's see if we can get this to work. I might have to do it at a weird angle. So usually I get it pretty full, and then that way it just sits right on top of the candy, and then I don't have to worry about it falling through or not. And we're just going to let that dry. Maybe while we're doing that, are there any questions I can take during this time?
Let's see. Kind of a related question here. Somebody asked what kind of gloves you are using because they're having trouble finding gloves that fit their hands properly. So if you have any recommendations on that front.
Yeah, I think if you do just a search for like chocolate cotton gloves, you'll find a few, and maybe, you know, look at the reviews and things like that and see which ones work for you. I tried some from our local cake store, and they didn't work for me either. So I think I just did a search after that and looked at some reviews and found some that way. But it really does help with minimizing the fingerprints, and so I really do like to wear them. All righty, so we'll give this, I did kind of slather on it on a little bit much there. So we'll give this a little bit more chance to dry. Any other questions or?
Yeah, absolutely. So we had another question about how many ounces of chocolate would be used for smaller molds. I guess that would depend on the size of the mold, but is there a general rule of thumb that you might use for chocolate to mold ratio or things like that?
Off the top of my head, I don't know the ratio, but usually on the mini molds, I think it starts around like maybe 2 to 3 ounces. Maybe the cube because, let me move this over so you can see it. Since it has a little bit more surface area, maybe like 3 to 5 ounces. 8. Oh, the cube has 8. Well, see, I was really good at math, but not surface area. So, so yeah, well, but we on the back of each of the packages, it gives a recommended amount of chocolate, and it is somewhat of a wide range, but like I said earlier, that's because everybody has a different level of expertise. They also have, you know, different intentions of what they want to fill their piñata with. So it just I usually, on those recommendations, I'm usually somewhere in the middle of them, just, you know, or maybe even a little bit more toward more at the higher quantity of chocolate, just to be sure, you know. So sometimes it's fun to have a really thick one because people are like, I'm gonna really bust through this piñata, and then they're like, oh wait, I've got to hit it some more. So can kind of psych them out that way. All right. So we're actually moving on to the last couple of steps. So I don't know if the last couple of steps would be, we're going to clean up the edges and decorate, and then we get to smash one. And we have an expert smasher here today. So if before we move on to those steps, if there's any more questions, I can take them now too.
Yeah, for sure. We did have somebody ask about using chocolate chips instead of meltables, but somebody in the chat did say that, you know, chocolate chips are kind of designed not to melt as easily for, you know, for cookies and such like that. But if you had any other insight about that. And we also did have a question about if there would be any required changes for using sugar-free meltable chocolate as opposed to just, you know, regular meltable chocolate.
Yeah, so back to the chocolate chips, I avoid them. I don't use them. They're good in cookies and brownies and things like that, but yeah, they really don't work well for the meltables. I know some people have had good luck with like almond bark and things like that. I don't really use that as much either, but I know a lot of people do and they love it. So that might be another option to search. And then I'm sorry, what was the other question?
We had somebody asking if there would need to be any changes to using a sugar-free meltable chocolate as opposed to a regular meltable chocolate.
Yeah, so I've only tried one brand of the sugar-free, and I really didn't notice any difference. So you know, there again too, it kind of goes back to the brand. But yeah, it melted pretty nicely. It was a great option. Obviously, there's, you know, these piñatas are also great for people who don't like cake, but if you do have somebody that is watching their sugar or just trying to be healthier and things like that, there are, you know, there's sugar-free candy, there's sugar-free meltables, and those are really excellent things to try. All right, so I think we're ready now to decorate. So what I said earlier that we're decorating for a birthday, so I have some happy birthday letters here, and I made these using a letter mold from Michaels, and I actually saw online that they have a new birthday mold that looks kind of cool, but when I checked my stores, they weren't there yet. So I'm planning to get that. So this is maybe from one of their older molds, because like I said, I've been doing this for 4 years, so I have a lot of older molds. But so we're going to decorate this one for a birthday, but let me know what you guys are celebrating. Like if you're planning to make one, let me know what you're going to decorate yours for. I'm almost ready for that. Okay. So sometimes, let's see. Oh, here's my tweezers. I didn't know what I did with my tweezers. They ran away from me. Okay. So it's optional to use the tweezers, but usually what I do in order to decorate, like if I'm starting with letters, then I'm going to first put all the letters out and just kind of get them centered and things like that. Let's see. I was looking at the time to see if I have time to do all of this, but I don't know if we'll have a lot more questions. So I guess it kind of depends on that. But so for now, just for sake of time, just in case we need it, I'm just going to write out happy, and we'll just put a heart there. So I just kind of get everything centered. And then what I do next is I will take the H, and I'm going to take a little bit of chocolate and just dab it. You might want, there's several ways to do this. If you want to, some people will use a piping bag. I tend to not, just because I don't like a lot of plastic ways, but that's probably the easiest way to do it, is just use a piping bag and pipe a little bit of chocolate onto the back of the letter. So you're basically like chocolate gluing it to the mold. And I tend to like to use either the same colors as the mold or the same colors as the letter, so there's not as much contrast. Obviously, if that's something you're going for, the contrast, then you can, that's something you can do. But for the most part, I don't do that. So the other thing, so I'm going to just get a few more of these on by just using the spatula, just a little bit of chocolate on there. And flip that over. And I kind of tap it to make sure that it's nice and on there. So another way, like I said, we have the piping bag, but we also have these chocolate decorating pens, and they come with two options. So there's a bright color one and a pastel color one. And what you can do with these is, so these have chocolate inside, and then so right now the chocolate that's inside of them is kind of hard, and so we're going to let this soak into some hot water. Jamie's bringing me some hot water. All right, so we're just going to drop it into this mug of hot water and let that chocolate inside of there heat up and start melting. And then at a certain point, we're going to take it out, and we can use this. This could be like a piping bag where we can pipe chocolate on the back of the letters and glue it on there. Now, what makes these great is, like, if you're decorating at home and you just want to add some color to your piñatas, and you don't want to buy like a big bag of chocolate just to get a little bit of color, that's what these are really great for. So you can write letters. You don't have to, get a mold to fill out letters, or you can use them for drawing. You can let your kids go wild and crazy with them. So they're really lots of fun. So we're actually going to use them today to decorate, put a little flair to our piñata, but then also use them to maybe put some of this chocolate, glue some of these letters on it. Now, obviously, earlier when I said I use the same color, if I'm using the purple one, that's not necessarily the same color. I just added a little bit of chocolate to the back of that letter. And maybe while that chocolate pen is heating up, if I can take a couple of questions while I'm trying to get these letters on.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. We had, a couple of situational things pop up. So for example, we had somebody who wrote in, when I poured my candy into the mold, it cracked the mold, unfortunately. What would be a way to, help correct that so it could still be usable? And we also did have a couple questions about how you might package, wrap, and price something like this should you want to, sell it in your own kind of shop.
Okay. Yeah. So sometimes if you have the mold, the chocolate is still like really cold, like you take it right out of the freezer and you fill it right away. Sometimes it's so cold, it will crack when you're pouring candies in there. So sometimes what I like to do is Like if somebody wants gummy candies, I'll actually put maybe some of the gummy candies in first to soften the landing of the other candies. I also tend to put some of the smaller candies in first. So that way they're toward the top, and when they smash it open, they, the smaller candies fly out. Um, when I was talking about like looking inside your mold while you're still rotating it within the fridge, that's a good way to look for those weaknesses. Because yeah, if you have a long line where it's kind of thin, that's probably where it's going to crack. Like I said, you don't have to get, because I don't know if you can see this on camera. Let me flip it over to the side here. But you can kind of see like there's different shading here. So on this piñata, this line right here is where there's a weakness. So it just looks a little bit darker now that the candy is in there. Here, let me lift it up and see if that helps a little bit. I'm not sure if that helps or not. So that would have been one where before I filled it with candy, I probably should have directed more chocolate in there, but we're risking it today. So we're just flying right along here. So, but those are things that before you fill it with candy, those are things that you want to watch out for. And a lot of times, to package it, I have a tendency of only decorating one side, and then that way I can use like a normal cake box. I think the size of the cake box that I normally use for the hearts is like an 8 by 8 by 6 box. And when I deliver it, I usually deliver it lying down. And then I tell them that once they get it to their destination, their table or whatever the case may be, that they can sit it, stand it up. I don't have everything glued on there yet. They can stand it up and crack it over. So that might be an option. I am testing out a couple of different boxes for my own business to see if they would work, having the piñata stand up like that and having it delivered that way. But I haven't tested them yet to see if they work. But so you'll have to, kind of look at the size of this and see if it would work. As far as pricing, I do have some pricing on my website if you go to kaboomchocolaka.com. And so if you want to check out some of that pricing there, obviously that in no means is standard across the board for anybody. I'm in the DFW area, and that obviously I have 4 years of experience and things like that. So that might be an option if you want to check out some pricing. I don't have everything out there, but that might be a good starting point if you want to take a look at that. All right, so we have had now this chocolate pin in here. Oh, we're doing on time. So we've had it in the hot water for a while now, probably way more than 2 or 3 minutes. And so what I'm doing is I'm just cleaning off the excess water, because that obviously if you chocolate and water do not mix very well. And so I don't want any of that to drip down with my chocolate. Now, some people just tear off this tab, which you can do, but what I like to do is cut it, and just depending, I just kind of cut it there in the middle. I'm actually going to cut it off camera, because one thing to note is that, this might look like a little edible candy. And so you want to make sure like you don't get it in your chocolate or any place that somebody might eat it, because it is plastic. So I'm just going to cut it off camera here for a second. But all right, so we've got, I don't know if you can really see that. And let's see here. So all I'm doing is I'm just kind of massaging it. I'm letting some of the chocolate come up to the top. And I'm just going to put a little bit on the back of my heart. And now we're just going to use these pins to add that. All right. And then I'm going to use it for a little bit of just to add a little flair. So I'm going to just kind of go back and forth quickly with it, but I want to get my sprinkle bag open because this creates a thin layer of chocolate that's going to dry pretty quickly. And I'm using some cute Sweet Tooth Fairy sprinkles today. So let me get these open. Let's see if I can do that with my gloves. And so by adding the sprinkles to after we put the chocolate on, that's really whatever manner you want to put it on, that's totally fine. Like if you want to take a tweezers and place them on so it looks all pretty. I kind of have a Jackson Pollock technique where I just throw it on, if you know what artist I'm talking about. And so that's, you know, honestly, that's really why I like to use white chocolate, because to me that it's like my blank canvas. So, you know, I've become a little bit of a chocolate artist with my own style. Use your own style. Have fun with it. Don't try to be somebody else. So, I'm just going to go back and forth quickly. I kind of pressed too hardly on that first round. And then, like I said, I'm just going to sprinkle this. I make a mess. We clean it up later. This is what I do. All right. And there we've added a little flair to our piñata, and we've kept it pretty simple. Okay, then the last thing I'm going to show you is, like I said, I wanted it since this is a beginner class, we just want to keep it really simple with decorating. And the last thing I'm going to show you is this seam tool. So when you take the piñata out of the mold snaps together so nicely that you really don't get a lot of excess chocolate on the seam. But we have the seam tool, and it has two different ends. It probably really doesn't matter which end you use. I'm a little partial to this end. And what you can do is just kind of clean up your edges, and you can do this right after you demold it. Sometimes I save it to the last step, like today, but it really doesn't matter when you do it. The reason why I save it to the last step a lot of times is because if you do get any of that excess chocolate on the side, that's what I kind of use to put my glove against, because I know it's coming off. So it really doesn't matter, you know, that I'm touching it and things like that. But basically with slight pressure, you just kind of go along your seam and you just kind of clean it up. You can wiggle it back and forth sometime. Like I said, this one actually came out of the mold really well. So you don't have to worry about, but you can just, you know, like I said, go along. We're not going to get too pretty here because I think we're running out of time. But you get the idea. Okay. So now the final step is smashing it. And like I said, I think at this point we'll switch from the overhead camera so you guys can all see our expert smasher that's coming here. So this is my daughter, Olivia, and she starts 3rd grade tomorrow. So shout out to all the mommies and the parents that are starting school, because we all have to adjust for those things. And she is going to smash this. So Olivia, how many of these have you smashed, do you think?
I don't know. I think I just had lots of them.
Lots, yes. They get a lot of practice in my house. So let's see. So some people asked, well, how do you smash it? Really, again, that's totally up to you guys. I made a little bit of mess here. We're not going to worry about it. And so some people like to tap at it. That's fine. Some people like to go for it. Don't pull any punches and just drive that mallet all the way through to the table. Do you know how you want to smash it?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to go for it? Oh, keep going. Keep going. Nice. Beautifully done. Good job. All righty. Well, I really hope you enjoyed it today. Let's see, I don't know if we have any questions remaining. Remember that this is being recorded, so if you missed anything, it will be on the Michael's website within a couple of days, whatever they said at the top of the class. If you make one of these, please hashtag me. I would love to share your creations in my stories. I've gotten a couple of good ones. You guys are so creative. I love the Breakable Chocolate community. Everybody's super supportive and so nice. So definitely hashtag Make It With Michaels, hashtag Michaels Classes, hashtag Kaboom Chocolaka. If you follow me on Instagram, I have a link tree, and I will, when the video is out, I will definitely link to the video. The American Crafts website has Kaboom Chocolaka information. So I get so much joy from this, and I just really want you all to get as much joy from it. And so we're just here to help. We want you guys to have fun with it. Like I've had so much fun with it. That's really the reason why I started this business, is because I saw how much joy my kids got, and I just wanted, oh my gosh, I'm gonna tear up. Okay, this is not planned. I saw how much joy my kids got from it, and I just really want to share that joy with everybody. So, ask us questions, please write reviews. If you bought some of the Kaboom Chocolaka products, that really helps. This is a new community. It really helps other people that are, trying these products out, and we would love to hear from you all for sure. So I think that does it. Is there anything else I need to say?
No, a couple last minute questions I'll throw in just in the last minute here. We have a number of people asking about how long you can leave the chocolate in the mold if you're not ready to fill it up yet. We also had a question or two about using multiple colors of chocolate, if there are, different ways you could use that.
Yeah, so that will probably, the multiple colors of chocolate, that might be a future class. I have a Halloween class coming up in October. And so there is definitely a way to do that. Obviously, Jamie did some marbling with different colors, putting it in. Her cupcake too has, a top and the bottom. So those are some of the things that we can go over. So if there's classes that you want to see in the future, definitely let Michaels know so we can tackle those. And then, I'm sorry, what was the other question? Oh,
yes,
how long do you keep it?
Yes, there you go. Yep.
Yeah, so I don't store mine in the fridge because that's what keeps the moisture will form on it, and then it kind of gets sticky. So I tend to demold them as soon as I possibly can. But if for whatever reason you want to keep them in the mold, then they would probably, to be honest with you, sugar is such a good preservative. They would probably keep in the mold a while. I probably, though, before you demold it, I probably would blast it with a little bit of cold air just so it comes loose in case it started sticking back to it. Because I'm in Texas, so I'm in a humid climate, and if I don't demold it right away, the chocolate will warm up to room temperature and start sticking on the mold again. And so that's why that's another reason why I partially demold it in the beginning, when I take it out of the fridge. Drier climates probably don't have that issue, so you probably don't even have to worry about that, but those would be some things to consider. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you for your time and attention. I really hope you enjoyed this. Definitely, we'd love to hear feedback, so thank you.
Bye, everyone.